In today's episode of HR Visionaries, we talk to Gena from Centerfield. We talk about how to run two teams in two different locations. Stay tuned. Welcome to HR Visionaries, where we unlock the secrets of modern HR. I'm Benjamin, your host. Join us as we shed light on today's HR universe with HR leaders and innovators from across the globe. Whether you're an HR pro, a business leader, or just curious about the future of work, this is your shortcut to the forefront of HR innovation. Brought to you by Hire, the AI talent attraction platform. Welcome to our new episode of HR Visionaries. I'm looking forward to a new guest, and we have Gena today in our podcast. Thanks a lot for taking the time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to talk to you, and maybe you can, introduce yourself in 2-3 sentences to our audience.
Sure. So I'm Gena Romano. I am the Senior Vice President of People Operations at Centerfield, which is a technology company that's based in Los Angeles.
Gena, can you introduce Centerfield to us?
Definitely. So we have been around for about 13 years. We're headquartered in Los Angeles, but we are a dispersed work group. We have approximately 800 employees in the United States, about 30 in the UK, and the balance are in Jamaica between Montego Bay and Kingston. So we are a marketing services company, and we help big brands that you know acquire more customers. And so we do that by featuring these companies on our websites and driving customers to them. And then there are some companies where we offer an end-to-end solution for, and we actually close the sale for them as well in our call centers.
Cool. And you're not based in Jamaica,
right? I'm not based in Jamaica, but we do have an amazing group of employees there who support our sales center operations.
Okay, that's pretty remarkable. So you basically have a culture that is partially Los Angeles, partially UK, and then also Jamaica.
Yes, all over the place. And so really trying to find the culture that fits each group is something that I'm consistently focused on to make sure that tailored experience makes sense for those different populations that we have.
And I can imagine this can be sometimes a bit of a challenge given the time zone differences and also the different locations. So how do you ensure that the Centerfield culture is there? So one Centerfield culture.
That's a great question. I think in terms of the different time zones, I think that's a challenge for most companies today that have international groups. And we try to focus our efforts on having a core block of time that's our main working hours. So that overlaps with as many time zones as possible, and try and fit in those meetings that you have with our international groups during those time zones. But I will say that, our Jamaica population, it's very different than our US population. And so we want to have a common thread of culture throughout all of our teams, regardless of where they are. And so it's really about, I think, listening to the employee population and hearing what makes sense to them, what they want, and trying to create an experience that is unique to that culture while still keeping the DNA of what makes Centerfield so great kind of at the forefront. So one thing that Centerfield is really good at is moving fast. And so we want to make sure that while we're tailoring these cultures to exactly what each population wants, we're still being as quick as we can, nimble, and as efficient and effective as possible.
Oh, that's pretty cool. And can you let us know, so why did you choose the field of working in HR yourself? So it seems like you're very passionate when it comes to culture, when it comes to creating one culture for those three teams. So can you let us know that?
Sure, yeah. So my dad was actually in human resources for most of his career. And
so it's a family business.
In a way, yes. When I was in college and trying to figure out what I wanted to do, he and I are very similar, and he would always tell me these stories about problems he was solving in the human resources world. And I thought, this makes sense to me. I totally understand his thought process, and it felt like an easy transition for me. And so I started my career in HR because of my dad. And I think over the last 18 years that I've been in human resources, it has, completely evolved in compared to what I was doing in the first couple of years of my HR career. But I think what keeps me in HR is just the connection to the people and the employees and the impact that you can make. It's extremely fulfilling to be able to help people realize their goals and help them realize the best version of themselves. And that's what I get to do every day. And so between that and helping a business grow and helping a business be successful, it's an extremely fulfilling and rewarding career.
Well, you just mentioned growth in Centerfield is really important to everyone. You guys have grown from a startup to a not even a scale up, but to a mature company nowadays. So how has this journey been?
It's been an interesting one. So I've been with Centerfield for about 6 years. And when I joined, there was no maternity leave policy. It was small enough where nobody had taken maternity or paternity leave. And so I had the opportunity to kind of build this HR function from scratch, from the ground up, and bring in the people that I thought could help me do that. And so it's been a challenging 6 years, but it's been amazing to see the transition. And when I started at Centerfield, I was running payroll, I was recruiting for data scientists, and I didn't even know what a data scientist was at the time, but I was figuring it out. And now I have a team of about 64 employees that span across, 5 different pillars of people operations. And it's extremely rewarding to see the amount of work that we've done and the impact we've made on people and how far that goes in an organization. Our growth has been immense as a company. And looking back at it, it's come from just hard work and a lot of really great teamwork.
What I find so interesting in HR is that you basically build 2 teams at the same time, right? In such a growth phase. So you build your own team of 64 people, but you also are an essential partner for everyone around to build their team of so many more people. So how have you approached that? So from being like, okay, I'm on my own, doing everything myself, towards, hey, I'm a manager of 64 people. And those 64 people help the entire company to grow.
It is one of the most challenging things. Absolutely. When I think back about the balance of putting my team first and making sure I'm investing in them and we're doing right by that, as well as supporting the business and being an HR business partner to our leaders so that they can grow and scale. I think one thing Centerfield has done really well is we put organizational design and planning at the forefront of what we do. So we're constantly thinking about the growth that we have and the next evolution of where the team needs to be and making sure that we are designed the right way by each function within the organization. Our technology team is huge. And so making sure that they have the resources that they need, making sure that they have the new AI skills that everybody is so crazy about today, keeping conversations moving. It's a lot to do, but I do think it is the most important piece of HR, which is making sure that the design of the teams is absolutely what is going to support the growth of your company. Because if they're not structured in the right way and there's holes or cracks, then the teams are going to crumble, and that's when it starts to turn around.
From transitioning from from like fighting on your own towards being a team lead. Probably not all those 64 people report directly to you, so there will be probably some managers in between. How did you gain this experience, or how did you gain those skills you need to gain to become an efficient manager or effective manager?
That's a great question. I think surrounding yourself by people that complement you. So my team members, while there may be some similarities in how we work, there's a lot of complementary skill sets. And I think leveraging those so that we can play to each other's strengths and we can help in those areas of opportunity has been super important for my team's growth. Finding people that are humble and, first and foremost, they care about people and care about putting people first above business priorities or anything else that's going on. That is vital as an HR organization. If you're viewed as an organization that cares about people, then our employees are going to feel like they belong and they're going to feel like they have a place at Centerfield for the long run. So those two values, I would say, are really important. And then just also having fun. Like my team and I are super close, and we make sure that, while we are working hard every day and we're meeting our goals and we're growing together, we still have a lot of fun. And we remember that, we're not saving lives at Centerfield. Let's not take ourselves too seriously and sprinkle in as much team bonding events that we can.
How do you find that fine line between hey, being very close, being also there for ensuring everyone has fun, but also at the same time obviously reach your overall goals. So to moderate those two.
That's a great question. I think when I started my HR career, there was this idea that you can't be friends with anybody that you work with, and don't get too close to them because you never know when you're gonna have to part ways or when you're gonna have a tough conversation. And I don't know if it's Centerfield or I don't know if it's the tech industry or it's just an evolution in general, but I think that's kind of shifted now. And at Centerfield, I absolutely have friends and people that I'm close with outside of work. And I think that's okay. I think it's about being clear with drawing the line of understanding that work is one thing and your personal relationship with somebody may look a little different. And there could absolutely be HR professionals that disagree with me and say you should never have friends at work and don't get too close. But I think it's our vulnerability with each other and that we've shared, some tough experiences. We've gone through some stuff together. We went through COVID together that have allowed us to be even closer. And that allows us to work even better together, because I think without that level of closeness, you don't have the trust, you don't have the comfortability, you don't have anything that a strong team needs in order to grow together.
Well, when I hate it, but I need to stick with the growth of also your HR team a bit, because it's absolutely remarkable to grow a team basically from one man show or one woman show towards a significant double-digit team. So therefore, I have some more questions around that. So in particular, how did you from turning into a larger organization yourself, how did you ensure that performance measurement and reaching goals together was ensured basically from growing your own team, but then also getting some managers in place to help you to accomplish goals?
Yeah, I think that was achieved first by setting goals at the level of our company. So first and foremost, it was working with our prior CEOs, making sure that we had a vision, making sure that we had goals that we understood at the highest level, and then starting to kind of work our way down. So we created scorecards for each person in my team, and those scorecards directly related to my goals, which were directly related to our company's long-term vision and long-term goals. So they could immediately see what they're doing every day and how that connects to our longer-term strategy. And being able to understand that what they're doing does matter. And as they accomplish their scorecard and they work their way through these goals, then we're going to start to realize real growth together. And so I think that being extremely clear about that and about the connection of their goals to the bigger goal was important as we scaled. And it was about kind of, I think, ensuring my managers and my leaders had the ability to communicate my vision and communicate my expectations down. So since the group at the leadership level for me has been with me almost from the start, I have this incredibly tenured team now. They understand the expectations and our high expectations of a people organization. And so we've been able to scale, I think, because we've had clear vision at the top, and we put into place tangible exercises and programs that allow employees to see the connection. And we didn't only do this in my organization, we did this across the board with every function. And that clarity and that communication has gone a really long way to helping employees understand how they're grinding every day, but it makes a difference in the long run. And I think a few, companies, they may fall short in that area of being transparent and communicative at that level so that employees can see their impact.
How did you, how did you deal with colleagues or, opposing opinions in general? So if in particular in those phases where you had like super strong growth and potentially nobody was entirely sure what to do next, obviously you have some opposing views. How do you deal with those?
That's a great question. I think we realize we're a really tight executive team today. And, over the last few years with all the changes that our world has had, it presented us with a lot of challenging conversations. And I think prior to that, the first couple of years that I was with this group, it almost felt like we had a little group think. We were working so well together. We were agreeing. Everything was great. And then as you start having conversations about, the pandemic and how that impacted employees, and, you're returning to the office and disagreements were happening every day. And it was extremely uncomfortable for me because we had been just such a well-oiled machine for the first few years. And so we learned to get comfortable in this conflict, and we learned to kind of lean into it and work through it together as an executive team until we could find some resolution that would help us with our employee base. And so I think for me and my colleagues, we have a really transparent and communicative relationship. So we make sure that we run things by each other. We're constantly checking in to see how new programs are being launched or received. Checking in to see if we're moving in the right direction together. And again, I think that comes with time. When you're new to an organization, you're trying to find your footing, you're trying to find your voice. It can be really uncomfortable, and imposter syndrome can start to sink in a little bit. But with time and with, I think, a proven track record of performance, you really find that you can disagree in a way that helps you find the best solution. And that's what's really important.
What has been your best moment at Centerfield so far?
Best moment at Centerfield. Wow, that's a loaded question. And recency is creeping in right now because, we are in the midst of a pulse survey that we just completed, and we're giving all our leaders feedback. We're in the midst of a 360 feedback program that touched over 115 leaders. We are in the midst of our compensation annual review and our year-end annual review. So right now it's like the perfect storm of all of these very important people programs. And it is, when I think back to the first year I started, and that we have all of these robust programs that are making a real impact in our employees' lives, it's super rewarding. It's amazing to see that. But I think it would be unfair for me to use this example of these amazing programs right now because it's happening and it's easy for me to say that. So if I were to think back, I think we've acquired around 8 companies over the course of my tenure at Centerfield. And I think every acquisition comes with challenges, but we consistently put our best foot forward to helping employees feel like they're part of the Centerfield group and feel like they're a part of a team. And acquisitions are not easy, and there's a lot of emotions, and people are attached to their company that was acquired, and it's scary for them. And I think that me and my team have intentionally put a lot of programs in place to help those employees transition in. And I think without those, and without the attention and time that my team has spent focused on those groups, they wouldn't have integrated as well as they have, and our team could have suffered. So probably like from a bigger perspective, I would say the acquisitions and making sure employees feel good at Centerfield.
Speaking of new employees, so when you hire new people for Centerfield, so what is your pitch to people? So like when you do optimization with regard to searches, it might maybe for some people not utterly tangible. So how do you present Centerfield then to those people?
How would we present Centerfield to like a candidate who wants to join Centerfield? Is that what the question is?
Exactly. A candidate you, I don't know, pick up at a university campus or at a career fair, or how do you communicate with people online? So I think it's super interesting when you talk to software companies that produce like a very specialized software grown that field a lot. However, from the outside, it may not be that visible or not that tangible for some.
That's a great question. I think, it has always been a challenge for us to concisely and clearly articulate what we do, because there are many facets to our organization. But I think if we try and simplify the pitch to a candidate, let's say on campus, as you said, we would explain that we use paid search to help our clients find customers and ultimately help them operate their business more efficiently. And that's a big chunk of what we do. There's so much more. And, it takes new hires a few months, maybe longer, to really understand what we do in all of our divisions and all of our locations and how it's all connected. But I think in the simplest terms, that's how I would best explain it.
No, that's very cool, because as I said, so I found this actually really challenging to understand, in particular it's the field of software that is in the B2B space, where it's obviously not that tangible for private consumers what you guys do, right? So therefore kind of a challenge, I assume.
Definitely.
Speaking of new employees, so how would the journey of a new employee at Centerfield start? So after successfully managing the interviews.
That's a great question. So once we've identified a new person to bring on board at Centerfield, if we're talking about our US based employees, we have a specific team that's dedicated to ensuring that manager has put together a very clear path for 30, 60, 90-day milestones, and that is adhered to. So from day one, whether they're remote or they're in the office or they're hybrid of some sort, we have a plan so that they feel like, number one, they know their role and the expectations of that role. Number two, they begin to understand the broader team, the people that they need to work with, those stakeholders, the individuals that are going to help them within their first year at Centerfield. And then three, they start to understand the company in a deeper perspective. So they take some online courses that we have that help them understand each function and division, a new hire onboarding schedule. And then we follow up with leaders to make sure that those people are really supported in their first 90 days, because we know that when they have a strong onboarding and they feel like they have clear communication, they understand the expectations, that beginning period is going to set the tone for their whole career at Centerfield. And if that's rocky, if it's unclear, if the manager isn't present, if something like that is going on, then their experience is going to be poor and they're likely going to leave before the end of their first year. And we find that when we can get employees that are past their first year, our tenure goes up by 3 times. And so that onboarding is vital to get that first taste of Centerfield in their mouth to be really good.
You have spoken about so many programs and very, very structured processes. So I'm wondering, when did you implement those processes? Because in this growth phase, it's probably like also a bit of a tunnel, right? So it's okay, growth, we need new people, and we don't have time for processes, and we don't have time to create great processes indeed. So when did you implement those, and how did it go?
Yeah, it's been a learning curve. I think what happens when you are so focused on growth, and growth is extreme, is it's typically the inverse of what you want to have happen that happens, and you realize we need to put something in place so this never happens again. So for example, When we first went to be 100% remote, we realized our onboarding schedule and accountability was terrible, and new hires were starting and they didn't have a schedule and they didn't know what was going on and they didn't know what was happening on day one. And so that happened. And as a result, we realized we need to correct this and never allow this to happen again. So identify the process, implement it, hold leaders accountable. And over time, it's gotten really great. But I think that's not the best approach, right? You want to be proactive and you don't want anybody to experience that. So we as an HR team try to be as creative as we can about brainstorming what does the future of HR look like and how can we identify problems before they happen so that we can put these programs into place proactively and have a really great experience for everybody regardless of their situation, location, or job.
And so if you could turn back time and talk to you like 5-6 years ago, what would you tell yourself?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I would tell myself to take it a day at a time. I'm a planner, and so I want to, be able to have a clear vision and plan for what the next year, 3 years, 5 years is going to look like. And at Centerfield, when I joined, it was really overwhelming, not having a team or a function. And I remember having days where I thought I couldn't do it. And I made a mistake by joining Centerfield, and I just didn't think it was possible. And through grit and hard work, was able to kind of like get through the really tough times. So I think I would just tell myself to take a step back and relax, and I'm going to figure it out. And everything always works out in the long run, right? And so I would probably just tell myself to chill out.
Great. You mentioned before that you guys are a remote first or remote only company. Is that correct?
No, we are a hybrid. So it does depend on the location. So in the United States, if you're in Los Angeles, we have a 3-day in the office policy. So Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, you're in the office, you're remote Mondays and Fridays. We have an office in Boston as well. And that office is a sales center, and they're in the office 3 to 5 days a week. And then we have our Jamaica locations, which are 5 days a week in the office, fully in office. So it kind of depends on where you're at.
Okay, cool. So, and which model do you like? Do you prefer yourself?
My CFO and I have disagreed on this for the last 3 years, and we probably will for the rest of our lives. But he is in the office 5 days a week. Even during the pandemic, he never skipped a beat. He is a firm believer that productivity happens in the office. I saw what teams could do during the pandemic when we migrated to being remote for the first time, and the flexibility and the productivity was still there, and our company was still successful. And I also hear from our employees all the time about that work-life balance that you can strike when you're not driving into an office 5 days a week. And unfortunately, we can never go back to what it was before the pandemic, when that was the norm, because people got a taste for it and they liked it. And so I'm a firm believer in flexibility and allowing employees to realize that flexibility. That being said, I do think it's really all about holding teams accountable to those goals, because if a junior employee who's never worked before, this is their first job, is working from home and they have 3 roommates that they're living with and they work out of their kitchen, that person is probably not going to be as productive as if they were in an office. Whereas if you have maybe a higher level employee who has 20 years of experience and they can hold themselves accountable and they can get their job done regardless of location, that may look different. So I do think it is, case by case. I think it also depends on the company. So many factors come into play. Personally, I believe in flexible hybrid situation.
And I think it's also super important, in particular for young people, to have an opportunity to learn how to work, right? So it's not that trivial switching from college to a 5-day working week. It's like super different, right?
Yes. I really can't imagine, graduating today and trying to work out of your home and trying to hold yourself accountable in your first job. Working remotely would be incredibly challenging. I think there's something to be said about learning that work ethic and what it takes going into an office every day. You understand it. So I don't envy those recent grads who are trying to navigate that. I think that would be really difficult.
Yeah, it's a major challenge, and so it's also super interesting to learn about your hybrid culture. And you talked about team events. So how do you conduct team events at Centerfield normally?
Yeah, we have a team that's dedicated to putting together small communities at Centerfield. They run all of our leadership events. They help with each function's leader to put together small events. And so for me, that person is on my team and she reports into me. So she puts, whether it's just, going to Topgolf or a wine tasting or, paint and sip, whatever it may be, we have these events that are just really fun, laid back experiences that again allow us to, I think, reach a level of closeness that may not have happened in the past. So that's one bit of it. We also throughout the year do volunteer events so that we can give back to our communities. We have small interest groups where folks who are really passionate about books or cooking or sports, they get together and they create things together, and those little communities have really blossomed and created some amazing relationships with people who normally wouldn't interact with each other. And so we pride ourselves in, I think, creating connections with people that you may not normally create that connection with, knowing that the more connected you feel to our company, the better you're going to be, and the longer you'll be with us.
Great, Gena. Thank you so much for this input. It was really cool to learn how Centerfield developed, and obviously remarkable success story. Thank you so much. It was really cool talking.
Thank you so much. It was great chatting.
Cool. And all of you guys, thanks a lot for listening in. I'm sure you also learned a lot from Gena's, what Gena said about what growth in a company, maintain a great culture, and speak. And hear you next time.